Hi, this is going to be a video overview of the ICOC Model 3.0 Option C. We call it on our task force the Region Building Team Model. And as we came together as a task force, we spent some time studying the scriptures and surveying the landscape of our current conditions. One of the things that we recognized rather readily is that structure is, of course, no panacea for the things that we want, to be able to be more effective for the cause of Jesus Christ. But nonetheless, we did see in the pages of the New Testament a real emphasis on regions and the work of regions and the coordination, the synergy, and the unity of regions. So, for example, Paul and Luke both speak of the regions of Macedonia, Achaia, Asia, Galatia, Cilicia, Pontus, Judea, Parthia, Syria likewise. Paul's letter to the churches of Galatia is one letter to a unified region of churches there in Galatia. Likewise, when he speaks of the church of Thessalonica, he speaks of how their faith has actually prompted and rung out to some of the other regions, including Achaia and Macedonia. In one situation, we have great coordination as Paul writes to a church in the region of Achaia. That church is the church of Corinth. And to the Corinthians, he tells them, there's no need for me, this is 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 1, there's no need for me to write to you about this service to the Lord's people, for I know your eagerness to help, and I have been boasting about it to the Macedonians, telling them that since last year you and Achaia were ready to give, and your enthusiasm has stirred most of them to action. That's pretty interesting because you have the churches of Achaia, the churches of Macedonia, coordinating an offering that is going to be sent to the churches in the region of Judea. Now that coordination involves certain individuals, and we see likewise in our New Testament certain individuals that seem to be connective tissue catalysts to be able to prompt great synergy, synthesis, coordination for the greater effectiveness to promote the work of Jesus. And so you do see Timothy, Silas, Barnabas, Epaphroditus, Epaphras, Aquila, Priscilla, Tychicus, Aristarchus, not to mention all the apostles. And even as I march this passage back a few verses, you see their role in all of this. Here it says, for Titus not only welcomed our appeal, I'm in chapter 8 now, verse 17, but he is coming to you with much enthusiasm and on his own initiative. And we are ascending along with him, the brother who is praised by all the churches for his service to the gospel. We don't know who that is. What is more, he has chosen by the churches to accompany us as we carry the offering, which we administer in order to honor the Lord himself and to show our eagerness to help. We want to avoid any criticism of the way we administer this liberal gift, for we are taking pains to do what is right, not only in the eyes of the Lord, but also in the eyes of man. In addition, we are sending with them our brother, who has often proved to us in many ways that he is zealous, and now even more so because of his great confidence in you. As for Titus, he's my partner, my fellow worker among you. As for our brothers, they are representatives of the churches and an honor to Christ. Therefore, show these men. Show these men the proof of your love and the reason for our pride in you, so that the churches can see it. Great passage in that it shows a coordination of churches, a unified effort, connective men who are able to bring about this synergistic work of Christ, and of course the regions themselves. That's what our model seeks to do, is to honor the fact that we work together in regions, but we do need some people to dedicate a portion of their ministry time to help those regions come together to be able to share best practices, case studies, resources, an allocation of those resources at an optimal level, and to be able to have certain individuals who can make that connective work happen is what we strive for. We're looking to be able to have a model of interchurch polity that is minimal but stokes the way that we do church and the way that the New Testament does church amongst regions that work together and spread the gospel, and amongst individuals who connect those regions. Now, one of the things that is encouraging, as I mentioned, is that just as we saw in the pages of the New Testament, this dynamic emphasis upon regions, that's our life experience. And thus we have these 34 regions. And not only that, but they are brought together by these connective individuals who dedicate a portion of their time. Right now we do it on an ad hoc, organic basis. what we're talking about is to add a bit of deliberation and intentionality to these connective ways that the regions can work together. We also see that each of those regions here now is being represented by region building teams, connected by executive teams who will execute the connection between the regions, but also to have oversight over these executive teams, elders who can provide the very oversight that would be required to make sure that everything is done right, not only in the eyes of God, but in the eyes of men as well. And so as we move forward to take a look at how this would all work together and how this could end up being a new model of church polity, we would have 34 regions represented by 34 region building teams, connected by an executive team, and with oversight by an oversight board. Now, to talk about each of these functions a little bit more clearly, the region building team would be comprised of a minimum of 3 people. And they would select a minimum of 3 representatives from their broader regional leadership to form a core of representatives known as an RBT, or region building team. The regional chairman must represent the region, and we strongly recommend that 2 additional representatives include a woman, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the chairman's wife, but a women's ministry leader that works with the women's ministry in that region, and a potential successor to that chairman or a next generation leader. Now, if a region exceeds 3,500 members, we would then also recommend that 1 extra representative be part of the team. And if it exceeds 4,500 members, then we would also then have a 5th, 5,500 members, a 6th. The additional representatives are chosen at the discretion of each of the respective regions. So based on the current membership of our 34 regions, the RBTs would actually expand our representative base from 125 delegates to 140 representatives. And what are these region building teams going to do? They're going to equip the regions for greater effectiveness via annual meetings. They'll come together alternating between continental meetings and global meetings. We want to equip the regional chairman to better lead, serve the churches within each region. These initiatives will complement church building workshops. However, region building workshops will emphasize the dynamics that are critical for healthy, unified, fruitful regions. This will be the first time that we have region building emphasis and region building workshops on a consistent basis to be able to have a rising tide that lifts all boats of all regions. By the way, this model assumes all of the service teams remain in place, and it also assumes that there is a coordination effort at a continental level. Now, the other thing that the region building teams will do, and what these representatives will do, is they will conduct global governance. They will gather to deliberate, not just simply vote, on important decisions that affect our global fellowship. Now, next we want to consider the executive team. This is currently in place in our fellowship ad hoc. What we are proposing is that the executive team will be more intentional than that, and it will include 6 couples with the requisite character, experience, skill set, accomplishments, commendations, and availability. And then finally, the executive team cannot include more than 2 couples from any one continent. They're going to serve 3-year terms with a limit of 2 consecutive terms. No more than 2 couples will come off term at any given year. And also, the churches from which they hail will receive partial salary compensation. We're not sure where that will land. It may be anywhere from 10% to 25% of their total compensation. That would not be a raise to them, but rather, or a subsidy rather, to the churches in which they serve. That would allow those churches, of course, to perhaps then be able to bump their staff and to not be affected as much by the absence of them from their churches. Now, we also have an oversight board. We call it the Executive Review Board because they'll be reviewing the executive team. But this oversight board, and oversight is a function of elders, will be chiefly comprised of elders or similarly qualified men, but elders where and when possible. Each continent will select via deliberation or vote an elder or similarly qualified member to serve on the Executive Review Board. Each of the continents will send 1 representative, but the continents of Asia and North America, because of their disproportionate size, would send 2. So an elder or a similarly qualified man would come from each of the continents. 2 from North America, 2 from Asia. But in addition to that, we'd like the women's service team to select 2 women to serve on the executive review board, and the teachers service team to select 2 teachers to serve on the team. So in total, the executive review board will have 8 elders or similarly qualified men selected from the 6 continents, 2 women selected by the women's service team, and 2 teachers selected by the teachers service team. Working all together then, what we would have is region building teams coming together to get equipped, brought together by an executive team, and reviewed for greater effectiveness and to do things right in the sight of God and men by an oversight board, chiefly of elders plus some other members as well. This in total is Model 3.0 Option C, or the Region Building Team model. Thanks for listening.